Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. Today is March 1st, it's Thursday, and I'm going to be speaking about death, ascension, and sun gazing. And I have generally been dividing this broadcast up into level 1 is the first hour and level 2 is the second hour. I've noticed that I've been just mixing and matching the levels of understanding because I feel that we are, like when I say we've already given birth, for many, many years, we have been laboring to reach this level of mental expansion where we are truly creating with our minds. And we're finally at that point where we're creating with our minds. So it's like all of the information that I'm giving each week is dependent upon what I feel are the most important tips and tools of the trade so that we can actually create effectively with our minds. So at this point, some of the things that I speak about in the level 2, they're very new insights to me. They're so new that I don't necessarily even have a recorded lesson all about it. Oh, you just think my little dog boss wants to jump on up. Come on up. Come jump on up. Here you go. And now she wants to be famous on the internet. It's always this way. There you go. You got cheeky. She loves to lick my lip gloss off. Okay, thank you so much for understanding, everyone. So yeah, so what I'm talking about, that's actually very perfect because I'm talking about the idea of sending out and reflecting. I say all the time that love is a tone. Love is a tone that we sing. Whenever I sing, Cheeky perks up. It's not just an airy-fairy ideal. It's not just something that is romantic love. That's not the love that I'm talking about at all, because this is something that can be done in a sense without a romantic partner, not in the traditional sense of intimacy, but more in the sense of consciousness partnership, that what you send out comes back to you. And this is one of the basic tenets of natural magic. So, you know, Cheeky is a wonderful example of that, of getting love, of sending out and receiving love, because it's non-exploitation. When you send out an equal amount as to what you receive, that is non-exploitative. It's not exploitation. If you're constantly, like if you're sending out 100 units of energy and you receive back 0, clearly that's not fair. Clearly that's out of balance. So now I want to bring this around to, and literally that tone that we make is the end result of that oscillation of sending out and receiving. So right now we're embedded in the time field. This little, where's my little yellow sculpture? This little yellow sculpture that's pretty fragile that I hold up all the time. This is an example of the time field. This is one of the chakras or energy centers on your body. And I have these extensive maps that I have behind me, and I keep on making more and more of them that I'll keep on sharing with you. The time field is a living being. It's like a living metabolism. And we are like little red blood cells circulating throughout the circulatory system of that living metabolism. So what we experience has everything to do with the health of the overarching being that we are living within. And we are given consciousness. So now I'm going to talk about sun gazing and partnership with the sun. And the sun also relates to the stellar network. So I call myself a star person. And that's exactly what I am. I emanated from the stellar network, which is a network of consciousness. And this is very different than saying I originate from a particular planet, like a planet that's circulating around a star. I actually come from the star itself, or from the network of stars, because each star is like a neuron. And all of those stars are sending out little photons, and photons are feelers. So they are like little aspects of self that the star sends out. And so I've spoken about this, and I got the dog on my lap. I'm just not going to draw the whole thing out, but I've drawn this before. You know, a little particle coming, a little photon coming out from the sun, and it would continue endlessly if it were not acted upon by some form of matter. Like if it gets acted upon by matter, then it slows down. It goes slower than the speed of light. When it's coming out of the sun, it's going the speed of light. And when it gets slowed down, then it coalesces and condenses into matter. And it can be slowed down by bouncing off of something. Like you're looking at a ton of photons right now that are bouncing off of these colorful pigments on my paintings and bouncing into your eyeball. You're literally eating photons right now. But this is not intended to be an exploitive relationship. This is intended to be a relationship of equals or of partnership. So now let's go back to ancient Atlantis. This is before the genetic squashing, before what is known as the fall, like the fall of consciousness. Mythologically, in human Bible terms, it's the fall from grace, even though that's a lot of blame the victim nonsense. It is the fall of the culture of Atlantis. It is the genetic degradation. And it's also why I have created this tool for what's the opposite of degradation, like reintegration, for uplift, for fixing that which needs to be fixed. And why did our genes get degraded? Because of genetic invaders. But before that invasion happened, first of all, everybody ascended. And now I should get my little pencil and start drawing. Hold on, because I got my boss on my lap over here, so I have to kind of lean forward. Let's talk about Ascension. And I'm going to jump around a lot. So blah, blah, blah. I know I say this all the time. I'm not an advertisement though, but the enroll in the class, enroll in the recorded lessons. Because if you're just watching these on YouTube, like people have been like, thank you so much for sending this out for free. I'm like, thank you for watching. It's not necessarily free. I ask people to pay or contribute voluntarily because all of this is meant to be a loving, non-exploitative relationship. I'm very happy to be here in this body as Aurora, and I'm also submerged in this sociocultural matrix. That means I live in a house, I rent a studio, I have to pay my electric bill. I'm pointing at my light over here. I got to get electrons to flow in a wire, and I literally have to pay my electric bill this month. So please help me to do that. Please contribute to me in order to help me to do that if you find that there's value in the energy that I'm sending out. And mostly, I mean, I'm not speaking to my long-term viewers and my long-term supporters, but I'll just say thank you to everyone who has been with me for so long, who has sent out so much beautiful energy to me. And people also make beautiful comments in YouTube, which I like to tell people, that's like getting Gatorade on the marathon, because this can be very grueling. We're in a marathon of consciousness, and we have all of these different detractors or obstacles or things that are trying to make it harder for us to do this ascension. And I'll draw it out what we're trying to do here. But it ain't easy, but we don't have to do it alone. We can do it like a migrating flock of birds. It makes it much easier to fly together, and we can mutually support one another. And so that support can come in the terms of good wishes. Good wishes are a very real thing. Like if you're on the sidelines of a marathon, you're not necessarily sending money to the runners, but you're saying, go, 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 or cheering for your sports team. It's a form of energy that really, really matters. So when people cheer me on, it really matters. When people send me positive messages, that really matters. And when people, of course, contribute physical currency to my PayPal or my Patreon or Enroll in Teachable, it absolutely helps me to be able to keep on going. So again, I don't mean to be like an advertisement, but I do mean to say I appreciate people who focus energy and attention on me, and I appreciate being able to send energy out to others. And in order to sustain it, I need to be able to receive enough to sustain everything. So that is what this is all about. Before we had degradation of our genetic code, here's the time vortex. You guys are experts in this class at this point. You know exactly what I'm drawing. So this is the lower quadrant of that yellow sculpture. And I'm drawing super exaggerated membranes of death. And now I'm choosing a different color. This represents the path of least likelihood. That is the only timeline. We start down here at 0. That's like birth. That line that's down there that I just drew, that's like birth. And what usually happens is, well, first I'll talk about what's supposed to happen. So you've got this, let's say this is the 0th dimension over there, what I just drew, that red dot. That's the source of everything. It's energy, and it is consciousness, and it's intelligence, and it's awareness, and it's what humans would define as the divine, even though it's us. It's nothing separate or unconnected to us. And what we're supposed to be is this unbroken circuit, just like the sun over here with rays of light. And here's little, change to a different color. Here's little you down here on the surface of planet Earth. And what you're supposed to do is have an unbroken circuit of light between you, where the sun, oh, you can't even see that color. I was using yellow. Here, we'll use a different color. The sun emanates light. Here are these beautiful photons coming to you, and they come into your eyeballs in the form of physical light, or they come into your tummy in the form of food that, a chloroplast caught the light for you and turned it into starches and sugars and a leaf that you put in your salad, or you can feel it on your skin, and it can, excite the like you can feel infrared warmth, heat on your skin, but basically sunlight is coming inside of you. And that sunlight is also consciousness. It's awareness that we have physical matter from the earth. So here I'm drawing a big giant earth underneath this person who's a big giant, like there you go. It's like the little prince, you're sitting on a big giant planet. And we get all of these blue dots are like cells of the earth. That's half of who we are. And then the other half of who we are is neurological activity, now making little zigzags like the sun is inside of us. That energy that comes from the sun is consciousness. And that consciousness helps to animate the mere matter or cellular stuff of our body. So before the fall of consciousness, what we were supposed to do was be like real-time broadcasters, like how now there's on YouTube or something like that. You can live stream. That means it's not a recording. It means that in the moment that the information hit the camera, it was broadcast out. And that's what we're supposed to be experiencing in this partnership, this two-way street with the sun, that the sun sends out these light beams or particles that come and interact with us as matter that is conscious. And then we, in a different color, I'll use blue as this color, we send our experience back to the sun. And it's supposed to be a real-time broadcast. This is supposed to be something that, like, this is our purpose, basically. We are like cameras or microphones or recording apparatuses here in the physical realm. And we were never intended to be cut off from, here I'll make a big black line, this is what's going on right now. What's going on right now is most people are cut off from the sun and the stellar network and divinity, which is also an inner presence, not something that's external at all. And that means that instead of giving these real-time live streams, like, oh, what are you doing? What are y'all doing right now? Like, you're sitting on your couch, you're watching a video, or you're riding a bicycle, or whatever you're doing. You're supposed to be broadcasting that to the sun. It's like, wow, thank you for all the molecules that make up my body. Thank you for all the neurological activity that animates my body. Here's what I'm thinking and feeling and doing. And you get to be part of the live stream. But what is happening instead is, because of the genetic degradation, that's this blockade, this black mark over here, most people are creating like an accumulation, a recording of events. That's not, it's like it reaches the barrier, but it doesn't go through to the sun until you die. But that's not what was intended. So what was intended was, like, if this is the source that's analogous to the sun, we were supposed to be emanated outward, coalesce into physical matter, assemble here at this position, like ballerinas start at the first position, and then travel up this central core timeline, never hitting this area that I'm highlighting in black. You're never supposed to hit the membrane of death. That is like in that old game Operation, when you're trying to get the little bones out of the person's body and you hit the side and it makes a buzzing sound. Like, you didn't do it right. If you hit the membrane of death, it means you didn't do it right. And back in Atlantis, everybody did it right, because we all had our higher faculties activated. And your higher faculties are, I'll go to a picture. Picture's worth a million of my flapping, moving mouth parts. Higher faculties, let me show you a picture. Okay, higher faculties, boom. So your higher faculties include your heart. This is what we got. Okay, sometimes I can't get my pen to go exactly where I want to get. There's your heart right there. That's emanating this big, huge, giant, circulating energy field all around there. And then, ooh, I can't get the tip. This is driving me crazy, this thing down here. Now I can't get to my, here, hold on a second. Now I can get to it. Sometimes it's very hard to make all this technology work properly. Wait, am I doing it? There we go. Doing it? Good. All right. The heart makes an energy field. That is what I'm highlighting in green. And then we have these other faculties that sit on top of it, kind of like wheels. So this comes from your inner eye. And so your inner eye, and I've done teachings all about this too. It is not only your pineal gland, it's not only the physical structures inside of your brain. It is also the ability to project. That those physical structures are like projectors that project and interpret reality all around you. And then you also have, so that's also your anthropomorphic lens, that there's a big giant lens in front of your face that is at that level of indigo, that is the filter of perception through which you perceive reality. And none of this is any good until or unless you activate this up here that I'm highlighting in purple. That is your crown chakra, and that's your connection to the divine. That's where we connect to the sun and the stars and the entire stellar network, the entire neurology of this great, great meta or overarching consciousness that we are a part of. And that, like a helicopter, spins around in this direction, it's supposed to tell us where we look through time. Like, are we looking in that direction, or are we looking in that direction, or are we looking in that direction? So if I go back now to that simplified time field, time vortex drawing that I drew over here, what's the difference between being on this central core timeline that exits the wormhole, or doing all of this, here, we'll do it in pink, all this rigmarole in pink over here? And the difference is If you have these higher faculties activated and calibrated, it's like being able to see. You can drive down the road of time with an actual windshield, being able to see where you're going. Now, if I asked most people in this class and in this world, in this time and place, hey, is it normal to be able, I'll go back to my face. Is it normal to be able to see through time and see the future, or is that something only for special people? I'm just moving my lamp over here. And most people would say, no, that's only for special people. Like, it's for people that are so special that you would literally pay them a lot of money to be like an oracle, or, you know, some kind of a fortune teller, be like, tell me who I'm going to marry or something like that. And that is considered to be a very special talent that not everybody has. That's everybody's birthright. It's your birthright as an individual. It's our birthright as a collective species. It's what we were designed to do. We were not designed by the great composer conductor to be flying blind through time, and that having to do endless trial and error, which is what we do in that time vortex. If I go back to this is trial and error, because if you don't know how to jump directly to that central core timeline and go here and navigate and essentially you know, like if this black line, you might be aimed in the wrong direction. How do you get yourself back on track like this and then like this? How do you get yourself righted and back on track? All of that involves those higher faculties. So in order to effectively navigate the time field and not have to go through every single possible combination of ideas and possibilities and events, that's the whole point. That, and I just need to drink some water too. We've been having to explore all these possibilities. And that's not what was intended, because some of those possibilities are aberrant. Let me move my thing also so you can see me better. Move closer. A lot of those possibilities are aberrant, meaning that they are not they're events that are not intended to actually be occurring. You're not supposed to have to experience whatever being smashed up on the highway or falling from great height or any of those deaths. So every single, and now let's also talk about what death is. So wait. I know I'm jumping around a lot. In ancient Atlantis, nobody died. Everybody had their higher faculties perfectly calibrated and it had the capacity to be able to see through time and see the future and determine, am I moving towards the membrane of death, or am I moving up that central core timeline, which is essentially eternity? That is eternal life. And I'm going to speak about what ascension is. So wait, I should go into this. I should draw this. Death versus ascension. So because I don't want to overemphasize death, because we live in this world that is literally run by an ancient death cult that does emphasize death, and glorifies it and tells you, oh, it's a noble thing to do. And it's a very, Zephyr is saying, even experiencing it vicariously. Absolutely. That we are really programmed to expect death in every way and to think of it as an inevitability. But what I want to tell all of you, the big takeaway of this presentation, is that death is not the inevitability. Eternal life is the inevitability. That blue arrow that I just drew, that central core timeline, that is the inevitable experience. Because what happens since the genetic degradation that has taken away humanity's higher faculties, so you cannot effectively see where you're freaking going, what happens is you are born out here, you assemble over here, move through time, and die almost instantaneously. Wait, I should draw that fatter. Here we need a fatter membrane so I can really depict this. And then what happens is that's your little hard drive, that dot. So we've got like a lollipop. Like here's a timeline with a dot on top of it. And that dot, I call it the final denouement. That's like the last snapshot of a movie. It's the last snapshot of the movie of your life. And the movie of your life is made up of, just like a regular movie, of many, many frames, many, many moments all tied together. And you could think like this plus this plus this plus this equals the final snapshot of your life. And you can also think of this like an equation, numbers like 1 plus 13 plus 237 equals the final moment of your life. Like you are a quantum calculator. This is, you are more than just, a piece of apparatus, but I'm trying to say your body is like a calculator, and you are calculating what is the correct set, series, combination of thoughts and ideas and beliefs and events in order to bring you up this timeline over here. So this seeing through time, it's not just literally seeing like the way that you can see a color blue or you can see a color red. It's also inner understanding. Like, what does it take in order to have that inner understanding and that higher insight perception in order to know where you need to go. So sometimes it might be the insight, I have to do this thing, or I have to say this thing, or I have to go to this place, or I have to feel this way. So we are guided by our insight. So in this model over here, so let's say you assemble over here and you move upward through time, and then here's where you die and you cannot go any further. What actually happens in that moment of death? I'm uniquely placed or whatever qualified in order to be able to talk about this because I'm what has been called a walk-in. Literally, I experienced death. I experienced a literal, here I'll go back to my face, a literal metabolic death of this body, and that destroyed the former occupant's ego, because your ego is what happens when you take the overall yarn of your DNA and knit it together into a sweater. And what happens when you reach the membrane of death is your sweater gets unfurled. So let's say this is a ball of yarn, right, over here. And then throughout your life, what happens is we create these loops, just like when you're knitting or crocheting, and then connect all those loops together. This is a very, very rough sketch. You understand what I'm talking about. But when I was on my walk today in the sunshine, getting my ideas, having my conversation with the sun, I realized that I wanted to use the example of having loops or crochets because it doesn't actually change any aspect of the yarn. All that we're doing is making the yarn kind of swirl amidst itself, but it's not like if you're sewing or if you're embroidering where you cut threads and then you make a knot and then you tie another thread. I'm talking about just taking one big, long, giant, vibrating string of your DNA, and throughout the course of your life, what we are doing is knitting it or crocheting it together into what I would call, this is your genetic sweater. This is the sweater of you over here that I'm circulating right here. So this, I see somebody's furry overlord down there. You're showing me your little cat. That's so cute. Thank you. I love cats. I used to have a beautiful one. She's gone on to a different timeline at this point. Like, she's dead on my timeline, but she's alive on another, and we'll talk about that too. So during the course of your life, you take the potential of your DNA, your string of DNA, and crochet or knit or weave it together, but it's still that basic, piece of yarn. And if this is the time field over here, when you hit that membrane of death, that big thing that I'm highlighting in green there, there's like a force, like when you feel a waterfall, the waterfall that can, like water can be very, very strong, that washes away. So what it does is it takes this ego structure. Your ego is that particular version of sweater that you have knit with that particular skein of yarn, and it unfurls it. So now I'm taking, like, imagine this, I'm starting with this blue dot. I'm going to take it and I'm going to pull on it. I'm going to pull on that thread or that yarn, and I'm going to pop out all these little loops, and I'm going to make it all go away until it's all just a regular ball of yarn. And then I'm going to send it all back to the beginning over here in order to try again. This is what happens at death. This is big. So I actually witnessed, and I'll tell you, like, the experience of dying and of coming into this body and creating the flying rainbow lasagna here, this flying rainbow lasagna portal, and the whole experience, it was incredibly difficult to get through. It's nothing that I will ever commodify or speak about lightly. It's not why I'm talking about it on this video, and I'm not saying this for any purposes of like self-aggrandizement, like I am so great that I experienced this. I'm trying to say, like, I went to China and I looked at the Great Wall, and this is what I saw there. I literally experienced the experience of death and saw and experienced what happened as a result. So I can tell you, like, from a first-hand viewer, what happens. But it was a horribly painful and traumatic and like horrible experience. So it's not anything that is like, it was actually very difficult for many years for me to be able to even remember or access those memories or look at what had happened. So it's been a lot like a journey of inner healing to be able to look at it, because I needed to understand what had happened. So the previous occupant of this body lived for 27 years and knit together their genetic sweater into that format for about 27 years. And then I watched when the membrane of death like pulled out all of the thread of that sweater and undid it, so that that sense of self did not exist anymore. That is what happens on the membrane of death. And that's what is supposed to happen on the membrane of death. Now, it's hard because most people, I mean, even though many people are self-destructive, most people like themselves. They're like, wait, I don't want to be destroyed. I don't want to think about myself being destroyed. When we're talking about yourself, we're talking about your ego. That is temporal, something that is not eternal. So this whole time vortex that I'm drawing is the refinement, making a distinction, boom, between the aspects of self that are temporal and the aspects of self that are eternal. This blue line that I keep drawing over and over in this presentation is your eternal self. And this pink rigmarole, these are all temporal self, not eternal. They are not your aspects of self that will live and continue onward. Let's say, like a term paper that's been saved. They're like the edits that have not been saved. Like, oops, try again. Oops, try again. That one's not worth saving. So let me just drink. When I'm saying saved, I'm not referring to any kind of Christian biblical literalist, even though you can see that I wear a cross, and that's because of Christ consciousness. That is part of the higher faculties, and it's something that I'm connected to. And it's not just me. Many people are connected to Christ consciousness. Christ is consciousness. So, this is, again, it's not just something special for me. It's special for all of us, but it's very different from the teachings of the Christian church. But the Christian church teaches, in order to reach this blue line of transcendence, that what you're supposed to do is go to the membrane of death here. And that is illogical. That simply is not truthful. So all of this is in order to be able to say our lives, a shape like this is made up of several different life vortexes. This experience is meant to be a refinery. Just like a refinery, you put in raw ore, right? That's got a mixture of gold or whatever you want in it, and then a bunch of other poop that you don't want in it. That's like, the leftovers. That vortex is a refinery that is refining out the gold, the true self that goes up that central core timeline, as opposed to the poop, the temporal stuff that is not the real you, that doesn't last forever. And so the challenge is, if you identify with the stuff that needs to be discarded, you'll be like, oh no, don't discard that stuff. I like that stuff. But, someone's saying that sweater song. Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Unravel the Giant Sweater. What we are supposed to be doing is identifying with our eternal sense of self. And our eternal self is the self that we are beyond this mere appearance, beyond your clothing, beyond your social context, beyond your economic context. It's who you are on a deep core level. So in many ways, we face these different challenges here in this time and place, where it's like, how do you express your true self? How do you stay pure or uncontaminated when we are often either placed in a contaminated context or not given all the resources that we need in order to fully express our truth? And so this can be like, let's say that you're a child and you're in a family where they never give you a guitar, but your true self inside, your eternal self, is a guitar player, of the level of virtuosity of like Jimi Hendrix. Then it's like, how can you express your true self if you're not given the proper equipment to be able to express that self? And also, so let's say that there's, distortion and dilution of your true self, where you're like, that you're a virtuoso of the guitar, but you choose to work, as a law clerk in an office every day in order to pay your bills. That is also a dilution of your true self, because we're living in this distorted context where you might not be able to get a gig and get paid for being your true self. And all of that is intentional, because we are in this satanically distorted world. And when I say satanic, I'm referring to a group of space races that uses technology that gets its energy from distorting the time field and siphoning off consciousness. So their planes, clank like metal spaceships, all of it runs on your bad feelings, your misery, your self-doubt, your guilt, your shame, your feelings of unworthiness. Literally. It's like if you think of like mitochondria inside of the cells, and the mitochondria are like doing their things, and that is what powers the overarching larger organism, the little mitochondria swimming around in your cells and doing their thing. You're swimming around in the time field, but what we're supposed to be doing is doing nothing but emanating love, and that's supposed to be the tone that makes the larger being fly through time, right? But instead, we've got this genetic squashing that makes people emanate these less worthy notes or tones that are those of, like I said, unworthiness, self-doubt, self-hatred, self-destruction, all of those things, that's what that technology feeds on. That's like, if you're saying like, Zephyr saying dissonance, I'm making a horrible noise right now that is disturbing my dog, but yes, a dissonant sound, that's what that draws upon. That's what makes their energy go. And that we're inside of a large apparatus similar to, like the idea of the movie The Matrix, that we're submerged within this virtual reality context that is a distortion context. So now let me talk about this, and we'll get back to sun gazing too, the distortion context here. So this is what I'm drawing over here. This is a hall of mirrors. Like if you perfectly set up a group of mirrors that were all at 90-degree angles, like they're all at 90 degrees, even though my drawing is not that perfect. But what would happen is you would have an endless, it would like be an endless, infinite reflection that never stopped of light bouncing down that hallway. That's the way the time field is supposed to be set up. An endless, infinite hall of mirrors, where if you're this, let's draw a person, if you're this lovely blue person over here, and you're sending out wonderful green love energy, then here's this other guy over here who receives that love energy, and then in a different color, sends some of it back to you. And it's supposed to be this beautiful tone, this mutual partnership between you and other people. But because we are in a distorted hall of mirrors, so now I'll draw a distortion time field. That, let's say, here's the hall, and here's a mirror that's like bendy and twisty and curvy like that. And there's no mirror here. This is like a dead, empty space. And here's a mirror that's like crazy and convex. And here's a mirror that's crazy and concave. All right. So when you send out energy into this hall of mirrors, look, you send energy over here, woo, it goes bouncing off in a crazy way. You send it over here, woo, it goes bouncing off in a crazy way. It never bounces back to you. And if you send energy over here where there's no mirror at all, it never bounces back at all. That is not what we were intended to be experiencing. But that is what we are experiencing here right now in this time and place in this distorted time field. So this is how I can also tell people about, when they say the laws of karma. But one of the challenges is that we do not live in that perfect hall of mirrors. We live in the distorted, deception world, like the fun house of concave and convex mirrors, where you can send out the most beautiful love to other people, but it might meet a distorted mirror and then not be reflected back to you. And that love can be in terms of service. Like you might be giving a great service to humanity in terms of your prayers or your meditations or your healing or your art or your music or whatever comes from deep within your heart. And you might be receiving back pennies or nothing at all. That's out of balance. That is not how the great composer conductor intended for this to happen. What was intended to happen was an immediate feedback. Just like the live stream, you're supposed to be doing a live stream that says, hey, this is what's going on. You are supposed to receive immediate feedback here, like in this game, to be able to tell whether you're going in the right direction. That if you send out goodness, you should receive goodness back, and you should get that instantaneously. So that's like, oh, I'm going to do that again because that brought me in the right direction. But if you send out goodness and you don't receive goodness back, then you're learning like, wow, like I can send out goodness and get nothing back. And then I'm looking at that guy over there, like I'm looking at some, crappy billionaire over there. He sends out crap all the time, but he gets lots of stuff. How can that happen? I want to have lots of stuff. What do I have to do to get lots of stuff? So this is the distortion time field. And I've described this, I also need to drink water, described this many times as a satanic distortion where not everybody gets what they deserve. And that's intentional. It is intentionally distorted. That's why those billionaires get money instead of get punched in the face. They're jerks and assholes, and they send out horrible energy, but instead of being punched in the face, they get a lot of money in return. And then there are people that have really beautiful hearts. They're sending out really, really loving, good consciousness emanations. And instead of getting really good money and opportunities and applause, like social appreciation, those people are often hated and reviled and discarded, and sometimes, end up in the worst social circumstances, living at the bottom rung of the social ladder. And that is not, so we cannot look at the world like the way that ancient Puritans did, to be like, oh yes, if you please God, then you'll be rich. And if you're poor, it's because you didn't do the right things for God. That's not true at all. Like we live in a very distorted time field. So, and let me also check my everything to make sure I'm moving at the right pace. Okay, I got it, more time. So we're going to talk about sun gazing too. So, but the whole idea is, what is death? So because people think death is like an escape. And someone asked me in the Facebook intro, like, do you think that the moon is a recycling center? Yes, whether it's based in the moon or whether it's based in like a non-physical aspect of the astral realm. P.S. Astral, connected to stars, and stellar. Stellar means consciousness. So the astral realm is a realm of pure consciousness. And the whole idea is that we come here submerged in matter, from the root word mother, our womb, where we gestate. Then we get born into the realm of pure consciousness. So look, I got this body that's shaped like eyes and nose and mouth, and I'm using that to cultivate my consciousness to the point where I have a body that is made of pure consciousness. That is what ascension is. So if I go back to my original spiel, what I was talking about, ancient Atlantis, before the fall of consciousness, all of us ascended. So here's what life was like back then. First of all, we all were light eaters. That means that we did not have to base the continuation or sustenance of our life on the death of another being. Death had never been invented until the genetic invasion of this planet. There was no death on this planet. Nobody hit the membrane of death. Not even plants and animals and microbes. Are we getting it? It's almost beyond comprehension, because death is so pervasive in this world. And in this world, people think, oh, death, that's like the escape. That's how I'm going to get out of here. That's like, yeah, thank you very much. Akman is saying, thank me for the beautiful description of ascension. That is what ascension is, because I got to also make a distinction here, because there are a lot of people that have a very heavy Christian biblical programming, and I am not here to mock you or your faith at all. I respect you and I respect your perspective. That's not what I'm coming from. And some of the aspects of what the biblical rapture or ascension talks about, they're very poetic and they're very beautiful. And I remember reading about them when I first came here as Aurora. Like I did kind of a like looking at a survey of all of the different types of religious writings. And I also got an idea of the time and place and the consciousness of people in this time and place based upon that. And I thought it was very beautiful, the idea of floating upwards, of like going into the clouds, of being free, of being like untethered to the earth, and the feelings that are described in terms of rapturous feelings. I felt that's a very beautiful poetic description. However, there's a lot of it that has been twisted and distorted, and the same type of escapism has applied to it. So people think that death is the answer, that, oh, I hate my life. Like this, I'm just giving, oh, I hate my life. Like, oh, I have to go to my job. Oh, I have to do the laundry. Oh, I have to do the groceries. Oh, I don't like whatever. I don't like the shape of my butt or my ass or, you know, my nose or my whatever, like what people don't like about themselves. I'm making fun of all this because a lot of people they take their lives for granted, is what I'm trying to say. They're like, oh, I don't like the freckles on my face. Get me out of here. I want to die. It's like, oh man, like you invested so much time and effort into gestating a body and being able to be alive. Yeah, and being here, I mean, I understand that most people have uncomfortable bodies, but we can heal our bodies. So I had a lot of neurological brain damage that it made it very difficult to be in this body, especially for the first, 7 years or so that I was in this body. So I absolutely can relate to the feeling of like, if your body is uncomfortable, it's not fun to be here. However, the answer is not death. It's not like, oh, my body's uncomfortable, let me die, get me out of here. Or I don't have enough money for my groceries, let me die, get me out of here. Or whatever is your problem in life. I don't like my kids, let me die, let me get out of here. It's not supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be like, I don't like what's going on in my life, let me heal. Let me heal my body, let me heal my relationships, let me heal my finances, or receive everything that I need to receive in order to make this a beautiful experience. So this world that we're in, the material world, is intended to be, a divine, beautiful experience where we are connected to the divine the entire time, not cut off from the divine. So what most people do, and let me drink more water because I talk so much that it makes me feel very thirsty. And what cuts us off from the divine is the talking mind, the verbalized, hacked human operating system that is installed, in the first couple of years of our experience of being embodied here on earth. That's not our true mind. And that installation process is what cuts us off from our true mind, which emanates from the stars. So most of the time people start to go crazy and they start to learn like meditation, because they're like, I turn off the talking mind, like I'm going crazy. So at a certain point in life, you're like, I need to learn how to turn off the talking mind. So that's when people start to learn different meditation techniques. I have a whole teaching about this. So I mean, roughly that we're on lesson number 5 or 6 or whatever. In the level 1 teaching, this is all about meditation in the mind. There are many different schools of meditation. Okay, Joelle is asking, how does it get installed? It gets installed from the other computers around you, your organic computers that have it already installed. So when you come here as a little baby, right, you have to learn somehow to communicate with the people around you. Like, I'm thirsty, I got a poopy diaper, I want to sit up and go over there. You have to find some way to communicate with the other people around you as a part of survival, as part of basic survival. So that is the impetus, the motivation for a little tiny infant that is connected to the divine consciousness to stop being connected to the divine consciousness and start connecting to the humans around it. Because although the divine consciousness is really awesome, if you have a poopy diaper, the divine consciousness is not the one that undoes your diaper and fixes everything up. That's your mommy or your daddy or your aunts or your uncles or the other humans that are around you. So what is necessary is we start to figure out the communication patterns of the people around us. We learn language. And as soon as you learn language, like as soon as you are organized enough internally to begin to understand language, that's when we start to download the human operating system, like the idea of time, early, late, now, words like that we begin to use around children. And children come in with a very oceanic or, undifferentiated sense of time. It's just all time is now when you're a little kid. But then at a certain point, as you begin to learn the human operating system, you begin to learn, yesterday, today, tomorrow, past, present, future. When is Sesame Street going to be on? Is it on now, or is it on later, or is it on before? So little kids, I don't know if you guys remember being a little kid and learning these lessons, but that's a big part of being a little kid. You start to walk in unison with the rest of the humans around you, and you do it through patterning and through mimicking. Like, little kids are really good mimics, and they start to learn, like, how do mommy and daddy do this, and they learn, or how is the day organized. So they download the human operating system, and at a certain point, humans are taught about death. Like, you're a little tiny child, and either maybe your goldfish dies and you have to ask, mommy, daddy, where did my goldfish go? Goldfish went bye-bye. Or where did grandma go? Grandma went bye-bye. Not to the park. Grandma went bye-bye permanently, and grandma isn't coming back. Like, every little kid has this moment when they're confronted with the reality of death. They're given an example of death, and they have to learn, like, what it is that causes the operating system to be downloaded. We get the software from the other people around us that are running those softwares. And it literally is a genetic dance. It literally is like your DNA is doing this dance movement, and then you meet someone who tells you about death, and all of a sudden your dance movement changes, and you now incorporate the reality of death into your dance movement. Because in this time and place, we don't teach little children, oh yes, you are going to ascend. Like, what's going to happen is you are going to cultivate your consciousness and accrete light, or coalesce light into your body until you reach a critical threshold, and then you're going to instantaneously transform into a higher dimensional state. That is not what we tell little kids. We tell little kids, death is inevitable. And there are even children's books about it, like, oh, this happens to everyone. It's going to happen to you, and it will happen to mommy and daddy. It's like, you try to tell kids in a non-traumatic way, but people say, death is part of life, and they have to learn about life, and blah, blah, blah. So all of this in order to say that I am here to give a new program, because I understand that in this time and place, everybody expects death, and that is written or described as like a type of inevitability. Like, everybody dies, and it's even, like I said, brought forth as something noble, like the way that the Roman Jesus is described as having died voluntarily to sacrifice his life for others to have a better life. And that's how war is described also, like those brave soldiers who died so you could have freedom, or any of those coal miners who died so you could have coal and light your lamps, or any of those justifications for death. Or let's talk about rock and roll, the death cult in rock and roll. Like, live young, live fast, die young, and leave a beautiful corpse, that this is part of the description of like the people that we idolize. Like Jesus died young, all of these rock and roll stars that died young, people who died in a war and they died relatively young. And the idea like that someone would live for many hundreds of years and then transform into a different mental state and abrogate the necessity of death, that is never celebrated or spoken about as like even something possible. It's not even described as something that's even like a fantasy. In some cultures it is. Let me drink more water. So we can talk about the rainbow body. And I'll do much more in level 2. Don't worry, I'm not stopping on any of this. The rainbow body, this is from the Far East, the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, and what they, in a particular level of self-cultivation, some masters achieve what is known as the rainbow body. Very similar to, I'm sure, some of the pictures I've shown, and I'll share you more pictures just in case this is the only video of mine that you ever tune into. Like here's an example of a rainbow body. That is an anthropomorphic human figure with one head and 2 arms and 2 legs that is surrounded and interpenetrated by all the light that you have accreted. And accrete means like to gather together. So your food is made of light. Oh, where's my food? Okay, hold on. Back in my face. Here, look, I got my awesome smoothie here today, guys. Guess what's in my smoothie? Coconut milk, mango, banana, and frozen raw cannabis. And this is not psychoactive because it is raw cannabis. It has all these wonderful health benefit qualities, but it doesn't necessarily affect my ability to think clearly or articulate or any of those types of things. So I highly, yes, exactly. And these are from, I grew my own garden. I live in California and I have the license to grow everything medically. So I grow beautiful organic cannabis. And at the end of the season, I take the little non-smokable buds that would have just, whatever, they're not really worth harvesting. I stick them all in a mason jar and I save them for the winter time between gardens. And so this is like my stored up sunshine, my stored up energy from previous gardens, and then drink it in order to sustain myself. So wait, and I'll drink some too. That is really good. And I like to tell people about non-psychoactive cannabis, even though I have no problem with psychoactivity, but I need to like think clearly and live my life. Ascension as transformation, like transformation from caterpillar into butterfly, even changing the type of food that we eat and the type of instruments of perception that we have. So we could say that the present format of humans being in a physical, embodied, material body and needing to eat physical food, that is like a caterpillar that needs to crunch up leaves and actually stick it inside of its tummy. And caterpillars go through their entire life as a caterpillar doing nothing but eating leaves. That's what they're supposed to do. And at the end of their existence of a caterpillar, they don't eat leaves anymore, but it doesn't mean they don't eat ever again. They get into their chrysalis, they transform, and then they emerge as the adult winged form, which is the butterfly that eats nectar, like the very refined aspects of the flower, not the big juicy leaves. So let's now, we're changing this. I started out by saying you're supposed to be a live stream, sending the sun the direct, undistorted reflection of your experience here being submerged in reality, as opposed to making recordings and then only sending up those recordings when you die. That's what happens. When you die, I should go back to that. You unfurl the entire sweater of your life. And as you do that, you broadcast back to the sun or the source all of those experiences. It's like rewinding the tape. And as you rewind the tape is erased. And those memories and experiences are set free to go back to the one that emanated us, but it's all after the fact. Because the sun and the stellar network cares about us deeply, like profoundly, as much as any parent cares about their child or any pet owner cares about their beloved pet. It wants to know what's going on in real time to help you. Like if you're driving down a road and it's like, oh, I'm about to drive off a cliff. The sun and the stellar network actually would love to know about that in order to be able to actually do something in real time to help you. And the only reason why the sun and the stellar network, people are like, where is God? Is God dead? Where are the angels? God is real. And there actually are very wonderful, advanced, higher dimensional, loving people. We'll talk about ascended masters when I get into the second half, because I got 5 more minutes. Remind me, I'm talking about ascended masters in the second half and what that means to become an ascended master. There are many wonderful masters who have already turned into butterflies. And there is, of course, the divine composer, conductor, emanator intelligence, that the overarching meta being. You don't want your red blood cells to die. You don't want any of your cells in your body to die. You don't want to lose a lot of blood. Like, you don't want, that means you die. We live in the time field. The time field itself is alive. It's a alive, living person that has its own life and its own, desire to stay alive and to continue. And it continues by having us continue, by having us reach that central core timeline, not hit the membrane of death. So if you're about to drive off a cliff, it should be like, SOS, I'm about to drive off a cliff. That affects the sun. That affects the stars. That affects consciousness on a much grander scale. Don't ever think that your little life doesn't matter. Your life matters profoundly. So I understand in this time and place, humans have been cut off from the sun, from the source, and it makes them feel like, am I all alone? WTF, what the F, what is going on here? Like, I feel pretty mad about it sometimes too. So I'm here to tell you, do not misdirect your anger, because God is real, or the source or the emanation of intelligence is real, and consciousness is real. However, human genetic degradation and the constant chatter of the installed human operating system has made it very difficult for the sun to know what is going on in real time. So what happens unintentionally, mostly now, is that, and I'll just make sure everybody's muted, most people live their lives not sending back a real-time broadcast. Maybe they learn to do a little bit of meditation, so they might send like little 5-minute blurps, blurp, 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 like you hear from the sun heard like 5 seconds from you, or 5 minutes from you at a certain point. But develop huge data storage, like hard drives, that then have to be turned in. It's like turning in your homework at the end of class, like going to school, or was like living in the human body in the physical dimension. And then after the class ended, you turned in all of your paperwork and sent it off to the professor, and the professor finally got a chance to read it. But that's after the fact. It's very, thank you, I'll take that, love. And I'll reflect some back to you. It's very after the fact. It's not effective. And so it's much more effective to have that real-time broadcast, because then we can actually receive assistance from that overarching meta consciousness. And we're not meant to have to slog through. So big takeaways from level 1. We are meant to have higher faculties that help us to navigate through the time field, that help us to be able to see down the road of time. We're not supposed to have to bump into the membrane of death at all, ever. We're never supposed to have to die. We are supposed to be able to navigate the entire time field. Thank you for understanding, guys. I'm getting a lot of kisses here. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for understanding. We're supposed to be able to navigate the time field and send back our real-time experiences without, I'm very lucky, I'm getting lots of kisses right now, without having to wait until our death. We are supposed to be able to have that unbroken consciousness. Thank you for understanding, guys. Cheeky is super sweet. She sends me so much love, like probably $1 million worth of love a day. So, whatever, a couple of dollars worth of dog food every day. And she sends me a lot of love. It's a wonderful partnership. And that's, so, I'm a star person, and I'm here in the physical world, and I'm learning all about the type of partnerships that we can have. Like, you don't have to live your life alone. You can have partnerships with other humans, friendships or romantic partnerships, and you can send out love and receive it through that. But that's mostly humans think like, oh, I'm so bored and lonely, I need a boyfriend. But it's like, no, you don't just have to have a boyfriend. You can also have a social network of humans that you love and that appreciate you. Like, all of this does not have to be merely the idea of romantic love or procreative partnership to have a baby. Like, clearly, Cheeky and I love each other, but it's not a romantic love. This is the whole point. You can love the trees outside of your window. You can love the microbes in your tummy. That love is a sharing of energy. Send out 10 units of energy, receive 10 units of energy. And that is how you make that tone. So we're making this beautiful love tone. And the more of us that do that, the easier it is to move through time. So that's another takeaway. God is not dead. God is not indifferent. God is very much alive and cares about your body. We got to connect with God or the divine. And that also this world might appear to be a hellish or unpleasant experience because we are in many ways isolated from experiencing that true love with others. I can way easier receive love from a tree walking down the street, or walking through a path in the woods than I can from most other humans, because most humans have the ego that separates them from me. And they're like, why are you looking at me like that? What are you doing? Like, I'm suspicious of you. Why are you like, you crazy rainbow wearing person like that? One of the big things, because I came here was very loving, like the way a little child comes here, I came here first as a walk-in, that I had to learn, like, oh, like not everybody is open to just being friends right away, or, receiving love and sending it back to you. Just like as a little child, most of us probably had to learn, like, oh, you just want to hug everybody, but not everybody wants to be hugged by you. And most people have gone through traumas and abuse and had problems that makes it harder for them to receive real love and send it out. That's the distorted mirrors. So we learn, oh, you're not in a perfect hall of mirrors. You're in a field of distorted mirrors. And you can't just send out love and happiness and hugs to everyone and receive love and happiness and hugs from everyone. That would be heaven, right? That would be our description of heaven. Well, I say this all the time. We are in the process of transforming this experience into a heavenly experience. That the realm that we're in right now is, very unpleasant and very out of balance, but it doesn't have to be. It can be transformed by our experience. And that's the transformation that happens when we transform from caterpillar into butterfly. Let me just check my time here and get all to the questions. Okay, I need to end level 1 and go on to level 2. I'm going to talk all about ascended mastership, masterhood, but let me get to the wonderful questions here. Okay, so Joelle asked, how does it get installed? Talking about the human operating system. And then she said, we realized that nobody can hear our thoughts as babies. That is very big. Like, okay, so that didn't happen to me as a baby because I didn't experience infancy as Aurora. But when I first came here and I started to interact more socially with humans, like the first couple of years I was relatively isolated, but as I got a job and became a custom framer, I had to somehow communicate with people, and I would be sharing with my words, do you want to frame it like this, or do you want to frame it like this? And I would also share a picture telepathically with them at the same time. And it took me a little while to learn. Not everybody was getting the telepathic picture. That some people were like dead spark plugs. It's like, there's no spark there. They're not getting that. So those people, I'd be like, oh, let me get an example for you and take an actual sample off the wall and put it together. But I started to learn that some people did have the capacity to receive a broadcast telepathically, and that they could hear what I was talking about internally. And one person even, I wasn't even saying it with my mouth, I was saying it with my mind, and they heard me. They were like, oh, I heard what you just said just there. And I joked, I said, oh, I'm a loud thinker. But that was a big realization for me, to understand that not everybody has those higher faculties activated, because I'm not bragging, but it's just the truth. It's like if you run a marathon, I can run a marathon. My higher faculties are activated. And this, what you see behind you, like this is the evidence of it. Like if you look at a runner's calves, you can tell they can run. They run a lot. Their muscles show it. This is my muscles. You can tell I do this a lot. My muscles show it. So let me just get to the rest of the comments here. Joelle says that she shares telepathic pictures with your cat all the time, and that your cat totally responds. That is beautiful, and that is also true communication. Before the fall of grace, or fall from Atlantis, the end of that culture, none of us communicated with flapping of moving mouth parts. The flapping of moving mouth parts was reserved for the most special ritual or ceremony events, like to say words and to actually vibrate the atmosphere. It had to be something really important to say. It wasn't just like pass the ketchup, or like, please turn the heat to 65 degrees. That would never be worthy. Like think of like an engraved manuscript. What are you going to say with an engraved, lettered, gilded manuscript? Something special and important, not something simple like please pass the ketchup. So all of that, yeah, Zephyr saying sacred word, absolutely. Because our voices are sacred tools for reality creation, that we emit these emanations that are literally painting reality. We do it with our imagination, and we do it with our voice. And this is the power of words and the power of spelling. There's a magic in there. So all of us can do, we should all be very conscious about what we say with our words. I know we're not in a telepathic reality. I'm very careful. Like when I sing songs, some of these songs, they're like pop songs or whatever, they have really terrible lyrics and I don't even sing them. Or if it's someone else's, like I'll turn into the third person. Instead of saying, I feel blah, 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 I'll turn it into the third person. She felt blah, 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 if I have to sing along. But I change words in songs so that they fit more with what I actually want to be experiencing and emanating in my life. And I would encourage everyone to do that too. Our voices are very powerful. And if you say with your voice something like, nobody loves me, you are creating that reality. And this is like and people call it neurolinguistic programming and all these different things. There's different ways to manipulate other people with it, but I'm talking more about the power of our own ability to create reality by what we are sending out. Like this is big, this is the partnership. So I'll check to make sure that I got through most of the questions for today. Joelle is agreeing, and Zephyr also, sacred word and spelling and casting spells. Brandon is saying we also change the words to songs. I think that's very helpful because I think a lot of pop songs are all about the death cult. And they're all about, people that are very self-indulgent, that are given a lot of money and a lot of success and attention, and they spend it all on very self-destructive drugs or, inappropriate sexual partners, and then, self-destruct and die. And that they're held as some sort of idols. Like, that is not something at all to idolize. Zephyr was saying something interesting over here about frequencies of the same vibration reflect off each other, creating the above two words, resonance and amplitude. I think this is all really beautiful. Like, we're understanding our voices create harmonic waves, and I did a presentation last week all about harmonics. Our minds emit harmonic waves. So this is understanding that we need to take responsibility for what we emit. So, okay, level 1, I got to end the recording, but I'm not ending for the day. I'm just going to stop the recording, and then we're going to go over to level 2, and I'm going to continue talking all about ascended masterhood. So thank you to everyone who tunes in. Thank you to everyone. I always put the enrollment and Patreon links down at the bottom. Thank you to everyone who supports me in that way.